Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're tackling the absolute dread that literally every pharmacy and med student faces, cramming a massive drug list into a single week, right? If you've been relying on sheer willpower, a bunch of highlighters, and way too much caffeine, well, you're in the right place. We're going to toss out those flawed habits and replace them with a structured, 5-step visual system that, honestly, actually works.
200. Seriously, just think about that number for a second. Every student knows that sheer total panic of staring down a list of 200 drugs. You start at number 1, you diligently read the mechanism, the side effects, and then you move on to number 2. But here's the catch. By the time you hit number 15, you've completely forgotten number 1. And by number 50, yeah, you're probably questioning all your life choices.
So that brings us to the million-dollar question. How on earth do you study 200 drugs in a single week? Now look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to just drink more coffee and study harder. Nope. Not going to happen. Instead, I'm going to show you how to study smarter. Today, we're walking through the exact system that successful students use to deeply organize and actually retain information without completely burning out in the process.
You see, the core problem is that we often treat a drug list like a basic reading exercise. We go top to bottom, as if each drug is just this isolated little fact sitting in a spreadsheet. But guess what? Your brain doesn't work like a spreadsheet, not even close. It actually stores information in interconnected networks. It thrives on patterns. It loves contrasts. So we really need to stop listing and start connecting. To get us there, we've got a biologically backed 5-step system for our explainer today, and it builds really logically on itself. We'll cover sorting before you study, the anchor drug method, the 3-column note system, using mnemonics and hooks, and we'll wrap up with the spaced repetition schedule. All right, let's dive right in with step 1, sort before you study. Listen, before you even try to memorize a single medication, you have got to organize that list. The golden rule here is simple. Group first, study second, always. Take those 200 drugs and immediately bucket them by class or body system. Throw all your cardiovascular drugs into one bucket, antibiotics into another. Why? Well, because drugs in the same class essentially share the same mechanisms. If you learn one deeply, you've intuitively learned about half the information for all the others. It's a total game changer. Just think about it for a second. If I told you metoprolol causes bradycardia, fatigue, and bronchoconstriction, and then right after that, I told you Atenol is also a beta blocker. Well, how much do you already know about Atenol without me saying another word? Pretty much almost all of it. That right there is the sheer power of sorting. You're mapping the territory before you even take your first step on the path. Which leads us perfectly into step 2, the anchor drug method. Okay, so once your list is sorted, the absolute unbreakable rule is that you never ever study all drugs equally. Instead, you need to find your anchor drug. What's that? It's the most important, most commonly tested drug in a specific class. You're going to study this anchor completely inside and out. But for every single other drug in that class, you're only allowed to study how it differs from the anchor. You literally just skip all the redundant reading entirely.
Let's look at how this actually plays out in the real world. For beta blockers, your anchor is metoprolol. You study its mechanism, its uses, its side effects super deeply. Then you move to atenolol. Now, since you already know the anchor inside out, you only need to write down 2 things for atenolol. It has a longer half-life, and it's renally excreted. That's it. Just 2 differences, and boom, you're done.
Let's break down the math on this, because it's actually pretty crazy. Say you have a class of 8 drugs. Deeply studying your one anchor takes, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes. But the other 7, they take like 5 minutes each, because you are only looking at the differences. So that's exactly 75 minutes to totally master 8 drugs, compared to like 3 hours of shallow linear reading that you're probably just going to forget anyway. Make sense?
So how do we write all this down? That's step 3, the 3-column notes system.
I actually want you to grab a piece of paper right now and draw out a table with exactly 3 columns. Column 1 is what it is, so drug name, class, and mechanism, but hey, in your own words, no textbook jargon, just your own plain English. Column 2 is what it does, bullet points only here, maximum 3 to 5 clinical uses and side effects, and finally, column 3 is watch out. This is for contraindications, dangerous interactions, and memory hooks. This standardized structure completely forces conciseness. You literally can't dump a whole textbook into 3 skinny columns. Plus, it gives your brain a highly specific, reliable map so you can actually retrieve that info during a super stressful exam.
And speaking of memory hooks, let's jump to step 4, mnemonics and memory hooks.
This stuff goes straight into that 3rd watch out column of your notes. You You see, the brain forgets dry, boring facts almost instantly, but it absolutely clings to vivid hooks. Take this frankly brilliant mnemonic for ACE inhibitors, captopril. The drug name itself unlocks the side effects: cough, angioedema, proteinuria, taste disturbances, hypotension, pregnancy contraindications, renal failure, increased potassium, and leukopenia. Just wow, right? A single word unlocks 9 critical side effects. The hook just opens the door, and your brain effortlessly does the rest.
Here's another quick one for tetracyclines, MAT. Minors under 8, antacids, reduced absorption, teratogenic, and trigger photosensitivity. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that you don't always need to hunt for these in a textbook. Honestly, the mnemonics you make up yourself, even if they are totally ridiculous or make zero sense to anyone else, those are usually the most powerful. Why? Because your brain made them. Your brain owns them.
All right, we've made it to the final piece of the puzzle. Step 5, the spaced repetition schedule.
This right here is the scheduling phase that definitively separates the top students from the ones who forget literally everything the day after the exam. Spaced repetition just means reviewing information at increasing intervals, right before your brain naturally tries to forget it. Every single time you retrieve a memory right as it's starting to fade, you push your forgetting curve further out and massively strengthen that long-term memory. It's just science.
So your exact 7-day schedule for mastering those 200 drugs looks kind of like this. Days 1 through 4, you're learning your new classes using the anchor method and those 3-column notes. Day 5 is a full review but using only your notes. Now pay close attention to day 6, active recall without notes. I really want to emphasize this passionately. Closing your notes and forcing yourself to write down everything you remember from scratch is, hands down, the single most powerful technique in learning science. Period. The actual struggle of trying to remember is the exact thing that builds the memory. So whatever you do, do not skip day 6. Then, day 7, that's just the light, breezy review of your high-yield watch-out column.
Okay, let's do a quick recap. Step 1, sort. Step 2, anchor. Step 3, 3-column notes. Step 4, mnemonics. And Step 5, spaced repetition. Now look, this isn't some magical shortcut. I'm not saying you won't have to put in some heavily focused hours, but it is for sure a much smarter, brain-friendly way of tackling the really difficult work. It actually respects how your memory is built to function.
I'll leave you with this thought. Students who use a system walk into exams calm and confident. Students without a system, well, they walk in just hoping for luck. And let me tell you, hoping the test just happens to ask about the 5 or 6 drugs you skimmed the night before is definitely not a winning strategy. You deserve to walk into your exams feeling confident. So stop relying on luck, start relying on a structured system, and really take back control of your study sessions. So what system are you going to use tomorrow? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy studying!